Have you ever felt like you don't fit in, like you're not meant to follow the crowd, but rather to lead yourself? If so, you might just be one of the rarest personalities in the world, the Sigma female. She doesn't need validation, attention, or approval. She thrives in silence, grows in solitude, and leads without needing a title. Unlike the alpha who seeks leadership or the beta who follows, the Sigma female walks her own path. She embodies calm confidence, fierce independence, and a deep understanding of who she is. She's not cold. She's composed. She's not detached. She's discerning. And above all, she lives by her own rules. Let's explore what makes her so rare, so powerful, and so deeply magnetic. The Sigma female operates from a place of profound emotional sovereignty. In a world that constantly demands reactions, quick responses, heated arguments, emotional outbursts, she stands still, composed, and unbothered. Her emotional world is not ruled by chaos or drama, but by deliberate control. This doesn't mean she is cold or unfeeling. On the contrary, she feels deeply, perhaps more deeply than most, but she refuses to let her feelings dictate her decisions or define her identity. Emotional maturity for her is not about suppression. It's about mastery. She has trained herself, sometimes through hardship, to respond instead of react. She knows that anger, jealousy, insecurity, they are visitors, not rulers. She allows them to pass through, observes them, understands them, and releases them. This is not a natural gift. It is a choice repeated over and over until it becomes a way of life. She has learned to pause between the stimulus and the response, and in that pause lies her power. The world sees her calm and may mistake it for indifference, but it is the calm of someone who has already won the battle within. She's not the woman who storms out in rage. She's the one who silently gathers herself, speaks only when it adds value, and walks away from what doesn't serve her peace. Her silence is not absence, it is presence intensified. She understands the neuroscience of emotional regulation. She knows that naming her emotions helps tame them, and that stepping back to observe her inner state shifts her from impulse to intention. She has done the inner work. She journals not to vent, but to reflect. She meditates not to escape, but to enter her mind's quietest corners. She has accepted her emotional shadows and integrated them into her light. And here's what's often misunderstood. Emotional control is not a denial of vulnerability. She is vulnerable, but she shares it with discernment, not for validation. She doesn't perform her pain for attention. She doesn't wear her struggles like badges to earn sympathy. She walks through them, learns from them, and rises with greater depth. And when she chooses to open up, it's not to be saved. It's to connect from a place of honesty, not desperation. Her emotional sovereignty makes her magnetic. Others come to her for guidance, for calm, for clarity, sensing that she's a safe space. She does not absorb their chaos. She holds a mirror to it. She reminds people that it's possible to feel everything and still remain grounded, and that is rare. Then there is her confidence, so quiet, so effortless, it often goes unnoticed until it is felt. It's not the confidence that seeks validation. It's not showy, not loud, not built on performance. It's not the confidence that walks into a room and tries to dominate. It's the kind that walks into a room and doesn't care who notices. because it knows its own worth. She doesn't shout because she doesn't need to. Her presence is enough. Her confidence is rooted not in comparison, but in self-awareness. She doesn't need to compete because she's not in a race. She's on a path of her own, a timeline of her choosing. And when people try to compare, she simply smiles. She knows that confidence based on comparison is brittle. It shatters the moment someone else shines, but hers is unshakable because it isn't about being better than others. It's about being better than she was yesterday. She does not dress for attention, speak for applause, or behave for approval. She does everything from alignment. There is a psychological strength in that. When a person's actions align with their inner beliefs, it creates coherence. Coherence creates integrity, and integrity creates peace. That peace is the foundation of her confidence. She doesn't interrupt conversations to be heard. She waits, speaks, when she has something meaningful to say, and says it with quiet certainty. People listen, not because she demands it, but because she deserves it. Her energy is different. It's not anxious. It's not frantic. It's not forced. It is settled. And in a world filled with noise, her quiet is revolutionary. She doesn't chase attention because she has learned the psychology behind it. Attention is addictive, and addiction always leads to emptiness. She's not chasing dopamine, hits from likes or compliments. She's cultivating something much deeper, self-respect. And that kind of confidence doesn't fade when the spotlight moves. It remains even in the dark. Her confidence isn't built in moments of success. It's forged in solitude, in the days when no one was watching, when things weren't going her way, when she had to choose herself over and over again without applause. It's in those moments she became who she is. It's in those quiet hours that she built herself from the inside out. That's why no one can take it from her, because they didn't give it to her. And what's more fascinating is that she never tries to prove anything. The need to prove comes from insecurity, and she has outgrown that. She lets her life speak. She lets her peace be her answer. She lets her energy make the first impression, and her values leave the lasting one. And in relationships, this quiet confidence changes everything. She does not beg to be chosen. She does not play games to seem desirable. She knows that what is truly meant for her cannot be manipulated into existence. She focuses on becoming, not convincing, and because she's grounded in who she is, she naturally attracts those who value authenticity over appearance, substance over spectacle. She doesn't fall for words. She watches patterns. She doesn't assume connection. She observes energy. And because she doesn't fear being alone, she never stays where she's not honored. That self-assurance is both her shield and her light. Psychologically, such confidence is not a mask. It is a state of congruence between her internal world and her external actions. It's the result of deep self-reflection, emotional discipline, and intentional living. And once you've tasted that level of self-trust, anything less feels like betrayal. This rare combination, emotional sovereignty and quiet confidence, makes her the Sigma female. She is not defined by what she has or how others see her. She is defined by how deeply she knows herself. And that is the rarest power of all. Independence is not rebellion, nor is it resistance for the sake of pride. It is at its essence the ability to stand rooted in your own being without leaning on the presence or approval of others. The Sigma female lives by this principle with a natural grace, not because she has never needed others, but because she has learned, sometimes through loneliness, sometimes through betrayal, that needing someone too much often leads to forgetting who you are. She is not emotionally unavailable, rather she is emotionally self-sufficient. This means she finds fulfillment within herself first. Her joy is not contingent on someone else's affection. Her peace is not tied to someone else's consistency, and her worth is never negotiable, even in love. She knows the deep psychological truth that you cannot fully love or be loved until you are whole on your own. She does not look for someone to complete her, because she is already complete. She looks for someone to walk beside her, not in front, not behind, but side by side, sharing life, not defining it. In a world that often equates femininity with dependency, her independence is radical. She doesn't wait for permission to begin. She doesn't need a consensus to move forward. She listens to her own inner compass, and even when the path is unclear, she trusts that she will figure it out. This doesn't make her arrogant. It makes her prepared. Independence, for her, isn't an identity she wears to be different. It's the only way she can breathe freely. It is a reflection of her deep understanding that freedom is not just the ability to go wherever you want, but to be whoever you are, unapologetically. She is capable of building, creating, thriving, all on her own. But that doesn't mean she doesn't welcome support. She loves deeply, passionately, but never desperately. She can ask for help without losing her dignity, and she can receive love without losing her center. This balance between autonomy and openness is not easy to achieve. It's the result of deliberate emotional labor and philosophical reflection. She has questioned what it means to belong, what it means to love, and how to remain herself within those experiences. And because she has walked this path, she doesn't fall for illusions. She doesn't confuse attention with affection or gifts with commitment. She sees beneath the surface because her own inner world has taught her to look deeper. She doesn't need grand gestures. She needs emotional presence. She doesn't crave promises. She watches for patterns. And this depth of perception isn't just intuition, it's psychological clarity. She's read herself so well that she recognizes emotional authenticity in others almost instantly. This independence also affects how she sees solitude. For most, being alone feels like punishment. For her, it feels like a reset. It's in solitude that she reconnects with her essence, that she hears her own thoughts more clearly. She uses that time to nourish her mind, to study, to create, to rest. She doesn't seek constant company because she understands that not all presence is peace. Some companionships drain the soul, and so she chooses carefully. And when it comes to relationships, she applies the same depth and caution. She is profoundly selective, not because she's judgmental, but because she knows the cost of giving her energy to the wrong person. She doesn't open up quickly, not because she's hiding, but because she values the sacredness of vulnerability. She reveals herself slowly, like layers of a story that only the truly patient and present will ever read. She does not chase people. She believes if someone wants to know her, they will make space to do so. If they don't, she moves on. She's learned the hard way that begging for love kills self-worth. So she waits, not for a perfect person, but for a connection that feels peaceful, respectful, and real. Her standards are not high to push others away. They're high because she finally knows what she's worth. And when you've spent years trying to be understood by those who never really saw you, you stop settling for partial attention.
From a psychological perspective, this discernment is the result of attachment awareness. She has likely studied her own patterns. Maybe she once anxiously clung or distantly avoided, but now she seeks secure bonds, and that means filtering out anything that doesn't feel emotionally safe or reciprocal. She knows that chemistry alone is not enough, that passion without respect burns out, that words mean little without action, and so she watches, she observes, she lets people show who they are over time, and when she commits, it is with intention. She doesn't play games, she doesn't manipulate or pretend to be less than she is. She shows up fully, with honesty and depth. She loves with a tenderness that is rare, but only after she is sure it is safe to do so. And if she senses disrespect, she leaves, not dramatically, but decisively. Her silence in those moments is powerful. It says, I love myself too much to stay where I'm not cherished. This is what makes her so difficult to find, and even more difficult to forget. She is not emotionally needy, but she is emotionally rich. She doesn't need a person, but she deeply values connection. And if she lets you in, it's because she sees something real, something that aligns with her values, her vision, her peace. Many confuse this kind of woman with being cold, but the truth is, she's warm, just not for everyone. She's not guarded, she's discerning. There's a difference, and she has learned that in a world full of loud distractions, fast connections, and shallow intentions, her sacredness must be protected. Her energy is precious, and she gives it with care. From the outside, her standards may seem intimidating, but to the right person, they are again, because being chosen by someone who could be fine alone, but still chooses to share her world with you, is one of the most profound honors. This is the psychology of strength, meeting softness, logic, meeting heart, freedom, meeting intimacy, and it is incredibly rare.
There is a sacred mystery in solitude, one that is feared by many and embraced by few. To most, being alone is equated with lack of love, of relevance, of meaning. But to the rare individual who understands the soul's architecture, solitude is not an absence but a deep, ever resonating presence. The Sigma female does not merely endure solitude, she honors it. It is not a punishment for her, it is a privilege. Within it, she discovers parts of herself no conversation could reveal, no relationship could offer. She walks alone, not because she dislikes others, but because she has realized that silence speaks in ways noise never can. In solitude, she hears the voice of her intuition without interruption. It is here that her thoughts become clear, her emotions become sorted, and her spirit finds rest while the world rushes. Seeking validation through constant connection, she slows down and listens not to others but to herself. This self-dialogue becomes her greatest teacher, her most loyal companion. Psychologically, solitude cultivates self-awareness, and self-awareness is the foundation of all emotional intelligence. She knows herself because she has sat with herself. She has faced the discomfort of her own shadows and still chosen to love the woman she found. That courage to sit in silence without fleeing is the mark of the deeply evolved. It takes strength to be alone, not in loneliness but in presence, and she has cultivated that strength deliberately. The world may ask, why is she always alone? The answer is simple. Because she refuses to dilute her essence just to be accompanied. She is never alone out of rejection. She is alone by selection. She will not lower her frequency to match the crowd. She will not compromise her peace to fit into noise. She has felt the sting of pretending to belong, and now she chooses authenticity over inclusion. And this solitude is not empty. It is filled with creation, reflection, healing. It is where she writes, dreams, plans, rebuilds. She doesn't fear missing out on social moments because she's found something more precious, the deep alignment of her inner world. She's aware of how easy it is to get lost in the collective and forget the self. And so she returns to solitude not to escape others, but to remain anchored in who she is. From a philosophical lens, solitude is the forge of clarity. It is where the soul is stripped of the masks it wears in public, where truth stands bare, and she meets herself there without judgment. She knows that anyone can appear composed in a crowd, but only the truly strong can be at peace in their own silence. This strength makes her magnetic. People sense the difference. Her calm is not performative, it is earned. Her presence does not seek attention, yet it draws it. Because she doesn't need anyone to complete her, her energy becomes complete in itself. And when she returns from solitude to engage with the world, she brings depth, not distraction. Her words are thoughtful, her gestures intentional. She does not speak to fill silence. She speaks to add meaning. She is not afraid of quiet moments in conversation because she understands that true connection does not require constant noise. She listens with her whole being because she has learned to listen to herself first. In relationships, this makes her. She does not cling because she's not afraid of her own company. She does not manipulate because she's not desperate to keep someone. She doesn't perform love. She lives it, and she does so from a place of fullness, not hunger. To love her is to enter a space where independence and intimacy dance together without fear. It is to know that her heart is open but never empty. Then there is her need for depth, an insatiable craving for meaning in a world obsessed with appearances. She cannot entertain surface level conversations, superficial bonds, or shallow pursuits. They exhaust her. They leave her restless. She wants more. She wants to understand the why behind the what, the soul behind the smile, the story behind the silence. She asks questions not to judge, but to understand, to see the real beneath the rehearsed. This hunger for depth means she often feels like an outsider. The mundane bores her, the artificial repels her. She thrives on authenticity. She would rather have one real conversation than 1,000 trivial exchanges. And this often makes others uncomfortable because depth requires vulnerability. It requires shedding masks, exposing fears, and stepping into discomfort. But she is not afraid of that. She welcomes it because she knows that only through vulnerability can we find true intimacy, not just in love, but in all human connection. Psychologically, this quest for depth reflects a high level of emotional intelligence and cognitive complexity. She perceives layers where others see surfaces. She reads between lines, hears the words not spoken, and senses energies beneath gestures. This sensitivity is not a weakness, it's a refined instrument of awareness. It allows her to move through the world with both compassion and discernment. But this also means she cannot fake interest. She cannot pretend to care about things that don't matter to her soul. She values time too much, her own and others. And so she withdraws from small talk, from performative relationships, from anything that lacks sincerity. She may be called intense,
distant, or even aloof. But in truth, she is simply waiting for resonance, for that rare click of genuine connection. In love, this depth transforms everything. She doesn't fall in love with appearances. She falls in love with minds, with values, with dreams. She listens to the tone of your voice when you talk about your pain. She watches how you treat those who can do nothing for you. She notices what lights your eyes. She wants to know what scares you, what heals you, what drives you to wake up in the morning. For her, love is not a transaction. It is a sacred exchange of truth. She gives her heart carefully, but when she gives it completely. And in return, she wants to be seen, not just admired, but truly understood, not just held, but felt. She doesn't seek perfection, but presence. She doesn't demand constant excitement, but consistent depth. And when she finds that, she offers a loyalty so profound it becomes unforgettable. To exist with this level of depth in a world growing ever more superficial is both a burden and a blessing. But she embraces it because once you've tasted the richness of real, you can no longer tolerate the blandness of fake. Once you've sat at the table of truth, you no longer hunger for imitation. This is her way. This is her standard. This is why she is rare. There is a quiet fire that lives within her. It does not flare up loudly, nor does it demand attention. It burns steadily, purposefully, deeply. This fire is her emotional self-control, not the kind of control that represses, denies, or stiffens the spirit, but the kind that observes every emotion with mindfulness, that acknowledges anger without reacting to it destructively, that understands sadness without drowning in it, and that meets disappointment without collapsing under its weight. Emotional self-control is often misunderstood. Many confuse it with suppression or coldness, but in truth, it is the highest form of emotional intelligence. It is the pause between stimulus and response. It is the refusal to let temporary emotions destroy permanent values. For the Sigma woman, this mastery was not born overnight. It was forged in heartbreak, tempered in solitude, and shaped through years of self-inquiry. She has felt deeply, suffered silently, and still emerged composed, not because she wasn't broken, but because she chose to rebuild with clarity. She does not act out impulsively, because she has studied the cost of recklessness. She knows that words, once spoken in anger, cannot be taken back, that emotional chaos, if left unchecked, can ruin everything she's spent years building. So she cultivates inner peace like a garden, tending to it each day with quiet practices, meditation, reflection, journaling, reading, walking in nature. These are not hobbies for her, they are sacred rituals that return her to herself. Through them, she observes her emotions like waves, knowing they come and go, but she remains the ocean, vast, still, whole. This does not mean she is emotionless. On the contrary, she feels more than most, but she does not let emotions drive her decision. She lets them inform her, not define her. She lets them pass through, not rule over. In this way, she becomes the embodiment of stoic grace, not distant but dignified, not indifferent but intentional. She can sit with anger and ask what it is trying to teach. She can sit with fear and recognize it as a messenger, not a master. This emotional regulation gives her tremendous power in relationships. She does not explode, she expresses. She does not punish with silence. She communicates with poise. She does not project her pain onto others. She owns it, processes it, and rises from it. This maturity makes her a rare partner, one who creates safety without chaos, one who brings peace without pretense. And in conflict, she doesn't fight to win, she seeks to understand, because she knows that winning an argument at the cost of harmony is not victory, it is defeat. She also knows when to walk away, not in haste, but in wisdom. When something consistently threatens her peace, when someone repeatedly disrespects her boundaries, she does not wait for them to change. She changes her direction. Her calmness is not passivity, it is discernment. Her silence is not weakness, it is strength. She does not need to prove her worth through loud defenses. Her presence is proof enough. This level of emotional self-control creates an aura that others feel but can't always name. It is serenity, it is centeredness. It is the rare frequency of someone who has met all parts of herself, the light and the dark, and made peace with them. And in a world constantly reacting, she becomes the anchor, the still point, the rare soul that others come to for grounding. Alongside this emotional sovereignty, she possesses another trait that sets her apart, a relentless devotion to growth. For her, life is not a cycle of repetition, it is an evolving journey. She refuses to stay the same, to stagnate, to settle into comfort zones that suffocate the soul. She is always seeking new truths, deeper insights, higher perspectives, not because she feels inadequate, but because she knows that growth is the essence of living fully. This growth is not just professional or intellectual, it is spiritual, emotional, existential. She asks the big questions. Who am I becoming? What beliefs no longer serve me? What wounds still shape my responses? She isn't afraid to unlearn what no longer fits her evolving self. She sheds identities that were shaped by others' expectations. She lets go of narratives that once defined her, but now confine her. Her growth is not linear, it is layered, cyclical, often messy, but she embraces the mess, knowing that transformation is never neat. This devotion to growth means she is always working on herself, not in an obsessive, perfectionistic way, but in a loving, intentional way. She reads to expand her mind. She travels to stretch her perspective. She engages in difficult conversations to confront her blind spot. She reflects after every heartbreak, every mistake, asking, what was I meant to learn here? This is not overthinking, it is the discipline of self-awareness. In relationships, this means she is not looking for someone to fix her. She takes responsibility for her healing. She doesn't expect a partner to complete her journey, only to witness it, and perhaps walk beside her, and she offers the same. In return, space to grow, encouragement to evolve, and the kind of love that nurtures, not confines. If you love her, she will challenge you, not to change, but to become. She will see your potential and gently ask why you're still living below it, not because she's dissatisfied, but because she believes in you. She does not stay where she is not growing, whether it's a job, a friendship, or a romantic bond. If it stifles her evolution, she steps away. She needs to breathe. She needs to stretch. She needs to feel that she is becoming more, not less, of herself. And this growth is not just for achievement's sake. It's rooted in purpose. She wants to serve, to contribute, to live a life that matters. She is not chasing status. She is cultivating substance. From a psychological view, this trait reflects a high level of what is known as a growth mindset. She sees challenges as opportunities, not threats. She believes in the neuroplasticity of the mind, the elasticity of the soul. She understands that change is not only possible, it is inevitable. So rather than resist it, she invites it. She knows that fear of change is the ego's attempt to survive, but the soul thrives in expansion, and so she lives by a simple but profound truth: evolve or remain. Her devotion to growth makes her intimidating to some and inspiring to others, because she will not stay in boxes, roles, or versions of herself that feel too small. She keeps outgrowing, keeps reaching, keeps becoming, and in doing so, she lights the way for others, not by preaching, but by embodying. She doesn't say be better, she is better, every day, inch by inch, quietly and powerfully. This is what makes her so rare. She is not only at peace with herself, she is in motion, not rushing, but rising, always aligned, never stagnant, guided not by trends, but by truth. And in a world that begs women to shrink, she dares to expand. Now here's something you might need to hear today. You don't have to change who you are to be accepted. You don't need to be louder, more likable, or more available. You just need to be more of you. That is your superpower. In your relationships, remember, a healthy connection feels like freedom, not pressure. A partner should complement your peace, not compete with it. Choose someone who sees your power, not someone who tries to dim it. So ask yourself, are you living as the rarest version of you, or are you still shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for your fire? If this spoke to your soul, if you saw a reflection of your own strength, your quiet power, your evolving self, then you are already on the path of becoming the rarest female in the world. Let's talk. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which part resonated with you the most? What topics do you want us to explore next? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because this is just the beginning of our journey together. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of growth, power, and inner transformation. Stay powerful, stay rare, and I'll see you in the next one.